All right. So the first thing on the agenda is to welcome our new members. We're definitely happy to have you guys. We still have a couple open spots too. So if anybody else you know might be interested, definitely send them along our way to apply.
And Melody, Patricia couldn't make it tonight, although I do maybe want to put a plug for Bonnie. That Bonnie, they removed the residency requirement. So if you do want to apply for SAB, it would be awesome. If this is a board you're interested in.
I actually do live on the edge of Nederland.
Yeah. Okay. Are you in the town limits? I guess I thought you might be right outside.
Yes, I am.
Mm.
I'm on Lakeview Drive. I don't know though. I have other responsibilities and I don't know if I can take this one on. I'm willing to come to meetings occasionally.
Having you just as a participant, it would be great. And there is an opportunity for an alternate, Bonnie, where if we say didn't have quorum, you could be a voting member if that was something that interested you.
Okay. I guess I would have to learn more about SAB because I haven't participated in town government matters much.
I
So
wonder if it would, if you're open, I maybe kick that over to Erica, if you would be open to connecting with Bonnie and sharing with her. So Erica was a part of SAB for many years and now is our sustainability coordinator. I could give you kind of a rundown of better than I can of all things SAB.
okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Bonnie. If you want to set a time outside of this meeting to talk about it, I can answer any questions you have. And if I don't have answers, Melody has been around, much longer than myself, and she could answer those questions probably as well. How's that sound? Should we set a time to chat offline?
Do I have your email? I think I do.
I'll just send a connecting email if that's let me just do that so you both can then connect with one another.
That sounds great, Linda.
Yeah, so the Sustainability Advisory Board has various kind of hats that we wear. I would say our main hat obviously is to advise the BOT and the town in general on sustainability matters. But we've also kind of proven ourselves to be an active project board where we have different things that we do and we recruit volunteers and such. And so I think more similar to ProSab maybe than any of the other advisory boards in that matter, where we do on the ground projects. We don't just make resolutions and pass them. So most of our documents for the sustainability board are all on Google. They're in a Google Drive folder. That's the best way to, if you're on the board, to kind of access all that stuff, see past projects. I don't expect you guys obviously to go through everything as a new member. Just kind of browse and peruse at your leisure and see some of the past things that have been done, as well as some of the things we're working on. And then if you have any questions about how to access that drive or how to get to anything or where something's located, or hey, have we done this before? Like Erica said, I've been around on the SAB for a while now. I want to say 2014 or 2015 is when I joined. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Just feel free to shoot me an email. And the first thing we need to do, and I don't know if Hunter or Larry, you feel comfortable with this, is we do need to appoint a new secretary, because Erica was our secretary, and so we do need somebody to take notes tonight, and then we also need somebody to be secretary.
Well, I could speak up and volunteer for it. but I read the minutes from the last few meetings, and they were really well done. And so right away, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm wondering if I'm even up to speed yet, coming in new. Although I know what Sab's been doing, roughly. One thing I'm noticing, I'll just say I can volunteer, even for tonight, starting right now, if you want, as secretary. But I'm noticing that our words are coming up on this screen in front of me. Does anybody know, are these
Larry,
words?
you can turn that off if you don't like it. So on the bottom left-hand corner should be a little like bubble that says CC in it. Do you see that?
I do, but I guess my question is, can we capture these words?
Oh yeah. So when the recording is over, there is a narration in the recorded video that could be, if you wanted to, you'll need to clean it up because some words get off. They think you're saying something else than what you're saying.
Right.
But you could use that narration to build the minutes from.
That's so awesome. So would I be able to see these words more or less on screens? Is that what I'd be able to look up? Not just the video?
I believe so, but so Macy, our deputy town clerk, that's how she actually handles her minutes. And I'd like to just confirm how she's able to see the narrated dialogue, the written dialogue. And then I can get back to you, Larry, on how to access that.
That would be awesome. So let me go ahead and volunteer, and I'll start taking hand notes right now. But I am going to rely, I'm retired now, but I'm a technical writer. And so, if I'm going to be a secretary, it's got to be done well. And those recent minutes, I mean, way to go. Those look good to me. So, I've got to meet, the present standard. So, but anyway, I'm volunteering as of right now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. Are you waving at me, Bonnie? Did you want to say something? Okay, cool.
Melody, can I add something real quick while we're in this initial part of the meeting? So it sounds like they're getting closer and closer to hybrid potential for meetings. And Miranda, please step in, but there's a good chance that we might be ready for that for our next March meeting. And I just wanted to throw that out there and see if people would be interested.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I think that'd be great.
I would love that idea, to meet in person, if that's possible. Yeah.
Miranda, would that be possible?
Yeah, so that is the plan. And then if any members of the committee, it's preferred that all of you come in person. That would create a more dynamic dialogue, of course. But if anyone could not attend, you would be able to join via WebEx still and be able to actually engage in that two-way communication. So it wouldn't just be listening, you could participate. But if the whole committee was willing to come together, it would be, I do think it would aid in the conversation.
So then we are meeting March, the last Thursday in March. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead and plan for that at the community center in the multi-purpose room.
And is that room already reserved, or how does that happen?
Yeah, the room's already reserved, and it'll actually be set up. So unlike historical SAB meetings, we will need to meet like the Board of Trustees says. So everyone will have their own seat, their own mic in order for the hybrid to work. So now all advisory boards and commissions will have the room set up like a Board of Trustees does.
All right.
Awesome.
Looking forward to getting together again. Finally. So the first thing on our agenda is Cynthia giving us a presentation on some solar permitting stuff. And I think we were also gonna mention the email that Miranda sent out too about getting bronze level and seeing if we can progress forward to silver. So go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. I don't know if I can share my screen, or Miranda, if you want to do it.
Cynthia, you could share if you wanted, or we can just do what we did last night.
Okay. I mean, let me try to share. I haven't done that before.
Yeah, just click share at the bottom and then pick the PowerPoint.
Okay. Let's see if that worked. How's
That
that?
works.
Yeah.
And then if you click in the top and so that you're in presentation mode, or click from the beginning, then we'll see it in presentation mode.
I got that. Okay, great.
Cool.
Okay. So SoulSmart has a best management practices webinar. Both Miranda and I did it. It looks at zoning code additions, changes, any issues that would be barriers in a zoning code to solar. So in Netherlands' case, I would say it's more omission than it is necessary hurdles, but there are some considerations. So obviously we know benefits of solar are far reaching. They have a lot of positive aspects for the environment, and especially if we transition from carbon-based fuels. It's not working. Whoa. We know that there's a lot of individual benefits of someone going solar. So certainly, I know that's a goal of the Sustainability Advisory Board. So these were the slides that I was giving to the Planning Commission. We've talked with them twice in January and February. The American Planning Association Solar Pages notes that a lack of inclusion for solar energy and zoning codes and comprehensive plans is a major barrier, and that zoning codes have a direct influence on the amount of solar energy that happens in a community. And the chart shows that there is a higher level of installed solar for the references in local codes. We have achieved bronze designation. We needed to leap through a few hurdles, and that was Garrett passed me the baton. He was the previous sustainability coordinator. And when he left, before Erica was named, I picked up some of the building aspects that we would need to achieve the bronze designation. So we got there for SoulSmart. We're working toward the gold. I think we can achieve the silver relatively easily. So we're working towards that. They prepare the best management practices, and it shows that demonstrations of support with inclusion of solar energy in comprehensive plans and zoning codes. Our comprehensive plan update, a little late with COVID, got a bit sidetracked. We're looking at potentially 2023, 2024 for an update. And we'd like to include solar energy, disruptions, disasters, wildfire planning, things like that, but certainly renewable energy. And then what we're talking about with the Planning Commission is any barriers that are very specific to the zoning code. So we don't have any definitions in the municipal code. These were definitions that were submitted by SoulSmart, so I took them verbatim. I think that a solar energy system that's 40,000 square feet of surface area and the principal use on a lot, that's pretty huge. These probably have to be scaled to Netherlands size, but different definitions that we could add to the zoning code. And I was asking the Planning Commission if the definitions feel accurate. Is there anything we should add or subtract? We have roof-mounted panels, ground-mounted panels. And where we consider accessory structures, which solar could be considered an accessory use or be on a main building or an accessory building that's detached. The main height across town is 35 feet. For accessory structures, it varies by zoning district. So the larger the district, like mountain residential, low density, the higher you can go. And then obviously these other districts, 20 feet. So that includes the commercial districts and the more higher, high density zones that are smaller lots. And I think that's an important consideration in terms of, you know, potential concerns that the Planning Commission could have is high. So on a smaller lot, like an Old Town, maybe somebody's solar could block out your solar. I think these are important things to think about without creating barriers for the zoning code as they exist. Just trying to plan around any future concerns. So there could be possibly exemptions or allowances to exceed the maximum building height. And I asked different questions there, like, should that be considered for residential or commercial? Maybe consider the size of the lot, structure location, structure type, whether it's the main structure or accessory. The maximum lot coverage is impervious surface on the lot. And that would be any concrete, asphalt, or structures. We did discuss at the Planning Commission, a commissioner had brought up whether a ground mount solar system would constitute impervious space. So I don't necessarily think so, because I've seen solar gardens where they're planting underneath it. And I mentioned that, but that was a question that arose with the Planning Commission. There's a maximum lot coverage, that's the impervious surface. It's by percentage, which varies by zoning district. It's larger lots, smaller percentage. So lot coverage, should solar systems be exempt from lot coverage standards? Any caveats by size or type of system? I think those are important things to consider. Setbacks, back, front yard setback, side setback. The district and the front setbacks are the same, one structure or it's a detached accessory structure. So you can see the larger lots, you have a larger setback. But when you get into side setbacks, here, those setbacks are a lot smaller for accessory structures, in some cases 5 feet. There could be fire concerns being that close to the property line. Setback, same thing. Larger districts have very small and really tiny in some districts, 5 feet. So there is an ability within the existing structure to go to the Board of Zoning Adjustment and request a variance. So if somebody is wanting to go above the height for solar or put a ground mount in a place where it's not meeting setbacks, it's a tier 3 variance. I have not seen one in almost 9 years. I'm not sure if the community center got a variance for their solar and the flat roof, but I think there are some considerations in there. So thinking about the distance to the property line. If the vision clearance area will be impeded, there are signs in Nederland where you're trying to pull out onto the road and you cannot see around the sign. I think it's an important consideration with traffic, and we certainly consider it for signage. Don't want to impair any utility access. These applications get reviewed by all the staff, so utilities is taking a look at different aspects of the plans. In some cases, engineering, not for solar, but there is existing code that is projections from buildings. Those are architectural features. So not really solar, but I asked the question of whether or not in scoping the zoning code to see about any potential barriers, does the town want to add solar to the list of projections allowed into setbacks up to 3 feet? Any caveats for vision clearance? Performance standards mention various types of emissions. that could be considered a nuisance: glare, dust, odor, gas, fumes, vibration. SoulSmart didn't feel that solar panels cause more glare than windows. And, you know, should glare be called out as not applicable to solar panels was the question that I was asking the Planning Commission. I think if you're near an airport, it's a different story, but in general. And then any zoning considerations that weren't previously mentioned. So at the Planning Commission, we discussed this in January and last night. The concerns that arose were around height on smaller lots, vision clearance, safety, snow pile, like when the wind blows and piles drift snow around ground mount systems, is that going to create issues? Drainage from the panels. We have a lady who has solar panels on her porch and hasn't had an issue. She spoke to that. Do ground mount systems contribute to impervious surface? So that's one of the questions that came up. I think there's a lot of opportunities in education and providing information on incentives and pricing comparisons. And the Planning Commission has indicated a desire to have a task force to look further into the issue with town staff, Sustainability Advisory Board, Planning Commission involvement, and an expert from the solar energy field to go over issues. They did this with marijuana when they considered marijuana licensing, and this is something that they thought would be good to consider overall issues in a collaborative way and report back to them both the comments of individual boards as they get this presentation and consider zoning aspects, and then things that may be pertinent to their specific board. The Planning Commission was interested in hearing those comments and that feedback. They would like the task force to look into it further and come back with feedback and recommendations. So as regards Sustainability Advisory Board, sorry, I lopped off the top of your tree. Didn't work for the size of the slides. So there's a renewable energy goal. This was passed in 2017. It was to reach renewable energy, 100% renewable energy by 2030. But the mayor decided to be very ambitious and say that there would be a transition to 100% renewable energy for the town of Netherlands community electricity supply by 2025. So he bumped it up 5 years. In that resolution, it's not an ordinance, it's not law, but it's they are resolving to try to achieve this goodwill. Renewable energy was defined as energy derived from wind, solar, geothermal sources. They also include small hydro and some forms of biomass after it's evaluated for sustainability, environmental justice implications. And these are the goals distilled down. The town was to transition to 100% renewable electrical use for municipally owned buildings and services by 2020, achieve 50% renewable energy for electrical supply by 2020, and achieve 50% renewable energy for its electrical supply. Oh, sorry, I meant to say, sorry, I just changed that, 75% by 2022. We, apparently these goals didn't see COVID coming, and we kind of got sideswiped on that, both with funding and the focus. So these goals were not achieved. There was a community solarized Nederland that I think most of you are aware of. This happened April 25th, started on Earth Day, ended at the end of June. And Garrett had provided a small report on that. He probably presented that to the existing SAB members, but there were 10 total solar PV contracts, but only 4 in the town of Nederland. So I processed those permits and people were pretty happy about that. Even as that was happening, I was getting solar permits for other companies that did not have the rebate. So I felt like I wanted to tell them, but I can't really take away the business of a solar contractor and say, no, don't go with these guys. Go with this program. So part of the opportunities that Garrett saw was a partnership with SunShare, which is better for renters, utilizing more solar companies versus just one, updating the town website, having a list of solar installers, and do an annual Solarize Nederland program to leverage the existing customers and start the program earlier. So those are considerations that I think leads you guys towards your goals, and so that you get an update on these elements, understand what we're trying to do with the Planning Commission, and see who wants to join me on a task force. So I can take any questions.
I have a question about the town's municipal 2020 goals not being met. And
Yes.
how hard, do you have a sense of just how hard it would be to meet them?
Miranda's probably a better guess at that, but I would say the majority, if not all of our buildings, municipal buildings, are not on, not renewable at this time. So we're 2 years past that goal. There are multiple buildings, maybe the community center. I'm not sure if they exceed their solar panel electricity.
So Cynthia, the town of Nederland contracted with Oak Leaf Solar for 20 years.
Okay.
So the town municipal goal has been achieved. We, at least for the 20 years that we're under that contract, the town of Nederland municipal buildings are done through solar. I think the idea is that we don't actually own the RECs for it though. So
We buy the solar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think when we use
Okay.
town here in this spreadsheet or this slide Cynthia's talking about, we're talking about town as a whole. You know, municipal government wise, our facilities are heading towards a good place. But I think as Nederland as a whole municipality, we're still a ways to go.
yeah, so on this slide, bullet point number 1 has been achieved. Bullet points number 2 and 3 were not achieved.
Okay, that's helpful, Melody. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cynthia, that was signed in 2018. The contract was signed with them, but I don't know exactly when it actually was plugged in and turned on. But it was supposed to cover 100% of our town energy, like government building energy use.
Awesome to hear. I wasn't aware of that.
So could I then ask about bullet number 3, the 2022 goal, 75%? Is that,
Town as a whole.
oh, well, that sounds huge.
Yeah.
to me. I mean, just right
Sure
offhand.
does.
Well, I mean, is that the next goal? If we're just thinking about this little, bailiwick of projects, I mean, would that be it? I mean,
I know that Melody and Eric, having been on the board for so long, they were in talks with Excel. I'm not really sure where that went, but do either of you want to add anything?
As far as your kind of original question is like how difficult is it to reach that goal? It's difficult. There's a lot of hurdles in our way. The CU capstone group that we had a few years ago, their final report is kind of in the main part of that SAB Google Drive, and it really does a good job of analyzing what are the different potential actions that we could take to try to get towards that goal. And then it's kind of determines which ones are feasible and which ones are not, and how we go about that. So that's a really good document to familiarize yourself with kind of where we're going. I think, as Cynthia mentioned, COVID kind of threw everybody for a loop, and it wasn't the biggest focus at the time. And we'll also later in the meeting, I think, circle around to this discussion of how far towards 100% do we want to try to get, and what are the next kind of milestones we might want to think about, and also kind of analyze how realistic is this getting to 100% by 2025, and what are the best things we can do to move further. I mean, right now, I think the general hurdle we have is our best option is to get people to choose to either purchase solar or get solar on their roof or get a ground mount or whatever. And it's just hard to go around and make everybody do that on an individual basis. And so that's why the Solarize campaign was really nice, as we could try to collectively get people, at least we got 10. So yeah, Erica, feel free to add anything else.
Yeah, thanks, Melody. So it's difficult. So we've looked at lots of different options, and I think it's time to revisit a lot of those options again and see if things have changed. You know, we looked at land for a community solar garden and really didn't find a viable location in Nederland. There's been some interesting conversations about that, though, like, you know, with Arapaho Ranch potentially, and, you know, big swaths of land similar to that just outside the town. But that's kind of its own separate beast. Renewable Connect was amazing. And we were really hoping that Excel would do another tranche of Renewable Connect. And I just can't see them doing that. When they launched that a handful of years ago, we got quite a few residents to sign up, thanks to Alan and Lester going door to door. And at that time, a 10-year contract was the same price you were paying now, but you were getting renewable energy. They're just not going to offer that again. So I have on my notes here to contact Excel and to kind of rebuild that relationship with them. We had done an MOU with them a handful of years ago, this Partners in Energy program as well. And I think it's time to maybe revisit some of these conversations and to see what new things might be available. And Larry, if you're excited about that, like, it would be great to have some fresh eyes on these different ideas as well.
Yeah, I am excited. I would like to pursue this at some level. So I'm still on a learning curve, though, to be honest. And so I'd like to just kind of stay quiet, if you don't mind, an occasional question. But otherwise, I'm just trying to learn stuff.
Sounds great. And like Melody said, I think when we look at our goals, we can approach the idea of efficiency and electrification, which is what some communities have done, instead of necessarily 100% targets. So I think we can talk about later, like, where is the most impact? Is it really focusing on 100%, or is it focusing on Excel's going to be here by 2030? They're planning to be at 80%. Is it better to really put some eggs in a basket for electrification and efficiency as well? So it's a dynamic conversation.
Can I just, I just wanted to, 80% by 2030, Excel will be?
Yeah, I believe that's their latest announcement. And then, and somebody else, Melody, can you confirm that?
It sounds right. I'd have to Google it to confirm it.
Oh, 80% in Netherlands. what Excel would provide 80% renewable.
Yes.
Okay, that's just awesome news because theoretically then, if we know that, I mean, if we're trying to do big thinking, then it seems like we could scale back just knowing that, if that's going to arrive. Thank you. That's fabulous.
So I have it pulled up. So we aim, so we have to keep pushing, right? We aim to reduce carbon emissions 80% from the electricity by 2030 and 100% by 2050.
Yeah, and so then for Nederland, and this, we still need to update the document with the latest community energy report statistics that Excel puts out. But so essentially, we're looking at, we need to make sure at least 20% of the town of Nederland is on its own kind of renewable energy source, and then the grid kind of balances it out. I don't know if it's a 1-for-1 80-20 like that, but the CU Capstone group, that's part of what they did, is built a spreadsheet that calculates the amount of the grid that is renewable, and then adds in the Nederland factors and kind of compiles how we get to that 100%. I don't know if what I said makes sense. It's complicated document, but it's really cool.
That made total sense. Thank you. I'm sort of seeing how we can sort of start to think about a goal, I mean, a real goal if we want to, and then work backwards. And, just, I know we have an agenda, so we can move on, but, I'm just thinking about this climate emergency resolution, right? That we just saw. It's awesome. The draft, way to go. But, the follow-up on it would be stuff just like this, right? Coming, I would think, ideally, with some nuts and bolts ideas for BOT on how to get that 20%. And that's just by 2030, but we could scale back to 2025. Wouldn't be hard. So I'll stop there, but this is very encouraging to me, just right off.
Great.
Can I say something about what I know about Excel?
Yes, go ahead, Bonnie.
I went to a presentation by a woman who's been doing a lot of pushing on Excel, and she showed that they actually had applications from renewable companies ready to install renewable energy back in 2018, 100%. And recently I heard that Excel had made a statement about 85% by 2030. And holding them to that seems to me really important. And I would think that pressuring them to do so by, because she was talking about they could actually achieve 85% by 2025. So it's they're just dragging their feet, pardon the expression. And they're a big corporation. They serve a lot of people. And I think that they should be pushed to, because we are in a crisis. It's not like, 2030 is 8 years down the road. And so that's my input.
Yeah, thank you, Bunny. I think we probably all agree on that. There was in our discussion through creating this MOU with Excel, it's tough to pull their attention and to really get them. And so I think that's why we've also worked on joining things like Communities for Clean Energy Action, CC4CA. I don't think I got the name right, but it's something like that. And that's where, multiple of us communities then can all be putting the pressure on Excel. And then maybe they start to listen a little bit. So, all right. Are there any other questions about solar permitting, or anybody who wants to volunteer to be on a task force about it? Hearing nothing, I am willing to volunteer for that, Cynthia. If you want to give them my info, melodybaumhover@gmail.com, and just let me know when we plan on meeting.
Sure. Thanks, Melody.
All right, I think that wraps up our discussion on that. So the next thing on the agenda is parking in Central Business District, and this is something Miranda is going to bring up.
Yeah, so I will actually send you. Town of Nederland has been working on trying to get feedback on the parking survey, or the parking specifically in the Central Business District. And for those of you who are unaware, the Central Business District is really all of First Street, heading into the Visitor Center parking lot. And we're looking for ways to improve that parking, possibly modify parking code in this area. And I will send you all a survey that asks for your feedback. But tonight I just kind of wanted to have a really informal conversation of what do you foresee as some of the challenges with parking in the Central Business District, and possibly some solutions that you see that could assist with parking. Obviously under the purview of SAB, we're really looking at sustainable transportation, alternative transportation, ways that we can incorporate the values of this organization into any sort of adjustments we may make with regards to parking code. So just looking to have a pretty informal conversation of your thoughts about parking in this area.
Do you guys mind if I just add something? And I apologize, a few of you have already heard this, but Kevin Mueller was on the SAB board for a long time in the BOT, and there's a lot of experience with sustainable design. And I remember a conversation with him years ago about backcasting. And for him, it was this idea of not projecting what we have now into the future, but really thinking about what we want to have in the future and working backwards, like what you were talking about, Larry, right? So setting a goal for 2030 and then kind of work back and what's realistic for 2025. And so he talked about this a lot with parking and transportation through town, and really thinking about, do we want to have cars in our community? And maybe we have a few, but do we actually want to have more parking? Do we actually want to have people drive right into the heart of our town? Or do we want to have them walk or bike or use transportation paths? So I just want to throw that out there because it really left an impression on me and how I think about, especially parking, moving forward from that conversation.
Thanks, Erica. I think I was going to say something similar, although I wasn't going to frame it as backcasting, but just generally, when we picture what is the world going to look like in 20 years, right? 10 years, how many cars are going to be on the road as compared to today? What is that world kind of going to look like? Is it going to be all electric cars and everybody's going to have electric cars, so there's still going to be vehicles, or is there going to be a shift? And so I think there's some really long-term considerations to think about when we talk about parking. I know, being part of an event that takes up the main parking in town twice a month, it's bad. There's no place to park, and there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of cars that are driving through every day. Even the other day when it was -2 degrees out and it was Tuesday, there was a line of traffic up to Eldora coming up the canyon still. And so I think we have to balance that what is it going to look like in 20 years with the reality of there is already a lack of parking. But I think my number one question is who even and where even is the space to put more parking for more cars? I'm not sure that we really have a lot of places that we could add parking. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles is just property and space. So it would seem that something like a garage that has multi-levels is probably going to be a better option. How do you fund that when all the businesses in the town are grandfathered in without as many parking spots as they should have and haven't had to pay into the fund? And so I'm not sure I have any answers. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And one of the kind of conversations we've had is because town lacks parking, do we look on the outskirts and do we become a community where we try to park on the outer edges and then through a shuttle system or improved trails and walkways, we allow people to come into town that way? I think that's one viable solution. Another thing people have been talking about is what can we do to push on that relationship with RTD to create a multi-level parking structure there. It is my understanding that historically RTD has not supported that, but I have not heard that myself. And so I'm interested in exploring that a little bit more. But Melody, you're totally right on that even of the town parcels that town owns, they're definitely not large enough to accommodate a significant amount of parking. You're looking at like 20 spaces here or there, and that's not necessarily going to address our much larger needs. Bonnie, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, please.
What I experienced recently, I believe that it's really crucial that the town of Nederland, RTD, and Eldora Resort get together and get a better plan going about bringing skiers up to Eldora because it's a mess. And Saturdays, for example, the buses never run on schedule. And when they have a breakdown, it's really bad. So there is a commentary period for RTD, by the way, between now and I think March 3rd or 9th, where they're doing, projecting ahead. But I definitely think there needs to be, some sort of really intelligent brainstorming about, for instance, reservations at Eldora. Somebody said they had those last year, to be able to regulate the people who are coming in. I as a person gave up a car, so I'm not a car person. I'm not, I think that the fact that our culture has grown into a personal car culture is a huge mistake. More cars on the road is not the solution. And I think that this kind of backcasting, where we really look ahead and say, wait a minute. I think about downtown Boulder with the Pearl Street Mall. That's a possible vision for downtown Nederland. Especially, for instance, when we have the farmers market, there's hardly enough space because the cars are going through and there's parking and, in a way, the farmers market in summer needs to have space to expand, and having space taken up by cars parking is not really going to be helpful. So those are my couple of pieces of input.
Thank you. Any other? Yeah, I did send out that survey, so pressure's not on you now to decide, but we will give more feedback. But yeah, any other thoughts?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry, I was on mute and I'm like talking and nobody's hearing me. So I can speak to some of those points that you made, Bonnie. I will start with the RTD and the Eldora and the town actually. So Eldora and RTD, we speak 2 to 3 times a week. The way RTD works, and we have sit down meetings with RTD management for the North Metro area quarterly. So we have each other's cell phone numbers. We are talking to RTD constantly. So they rely on rider numbers. And so they, in the past, when they had more staffing, they would be able to schedule what they call overflow buses. So they're buses that aren't on the schedule, but that as soon as that first bus is filled with 55 people, like the 8:15 on Saturday morning and the 10:15 on Saturday morning and Sunday, 8:15 and 10:15 on Sunday morning, they would schedule overflow buses. And so sometimes we would have 3 buses at the resort. Due to COVID and staffing, they basically told us, do not ask for overflow buses. We don't have them. We don't have the staffing. We can't do it. You guys are going to have to figure something out. So we have 3 shuttles. So basically RTD leaves the downtown Boulder station. They have 8, 10, and 12. We filled in with 3 additional shuttles leaving from the Justice Center at 9, 11, and 1. We have somebody at the RTD bus station Saturday and Sunday handing free RTD tickets to people to get them on the buses. And then a handful of our employees are allowed. We'll ski patrol. It depends on who it is. But the majority of our employees are not allowed to park on site in order to keep more parking spaces available for the public. We did have a reservation system last year. It was a free reservation system. And the reason for the reservation system was to control capacity, because we basically had to submit an operating plan to Boulder County in order to get permission to open during COVID. And so we could only operate on 30% capacity. And so we basically had to prove to them that, this is how we were going to do it. It did solve a lot of the majority of the traffic. However, we had a 27% no-show rate, right? So the people were furious because they couldn't make online reservations, because people would make reservations and then they wouldn't show up, and then we have all these empty parking spaces. And so we had 4 different entry times. People could come at 9, 11, and 9, 11, 1, or 12:30 and 2. And so that was really helpful, because those staggered entries, because we were really super, super busy in the morning. And then, so we were telling people to come after, 12 o'clock, and it would open up and we'd have more spaces. So we are building, we did get permission to do a parking expansion, and we are adding 750 parking spaces. But the issue is that's not going to fix the problem. I mean, we've got to change people's behavior, and we're not going to build any more parking lots. I mean, the problem's not going to go away. So we're really trying to push alternative transportation. We're really trying to encourage people to come later in the day. We've really tried to be creative. We're definitely talking about, should we do a reservation system next year? Should we charge for parking? Should we only charge for SOV parking? We were incentivizing high occupancy vehicles, and we have a high occupancy vehicle lot right in the main lot. And in 2019, we were like, people would, get out of their cars with 3 or more people. That's what's considered high occupancy vehicle. And we would be giving them baseball hats and swag. But because of COVID, Boulder County doesn't want us to encourage high occupancy vehicles because because it's COVID. In fact, one of the conditions of approval for a parking lot is that we will charge for single occupancy vehicles. And we were prepared to charge for single occupancy vehicles as per our, mandated by Boulder County. And then they came back when the Omicron variant came, and they were like, don't do that. We want you to wait a season before you charge. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're trying to be creative. Everything's on the table. You know, going back to what Erica was saying and Melody about what do you see in the future? I mean, I don't want to see more cars. I mean, basically public transportation was the way to go. And then when the Model T came out, you know, Ford was telling everybody that cars are the way to go and you don't want to ride public transportation. So the car industry, you know, they turned people away from public transportation because they wanted to sell cars, right? But I feel like, and I love what you were saying, Bonnie, because I was also thinking about Pearl Street Mall. However, I don't feel like, and I think we could probably all agree that Nederland right now, you know, does not have the infrastructure with busing to get people, like, sure, you could park your car, like if there was a, you know, you can park your car in the RTD parking lot and walk downtown and shop, but there's not enough spaces, right? So, but if you live, you know, off Ridge Road, you have to drive your car to go to the BNF, right? I mean, it's just, and the other thing that we get a lot of feedback from our guests are families, and they're like, I can't, you know, I have, you know, 3 kids and 3 pairs of skis and poles and lunch, and, you know, we can't get on the bus. We can't do it. It's just too much. And so I feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't want to see more cars. I think, you know, we've been in contact with, I mean, as Miranda knows, with the town. I mean, we're all communicating, and we're doing the best we can. But I think long term, you know, it's changing people's behavior and really getting them to kind of go back to public transportation, but also keep in mind that there are phases in people's lives where public transportation isn't an option, or maybe there's, you know, a special needs situation, and, or, you know what I mean? But with RTD, they really rely on numbers. And if we want to get RTD to build a parking lot, then the numbers have to be year round. It's not that they're just, the buses are filled up when Eldora is open. The buses need to be filled going to Hesse, right? They need to be filled in the summer. They need to be filled because when they see those rider numbers, I mean, there was a time that they were thinking of taking away the N bus. And we were like, please don't do that. Please, please, please don't do that. And so it's all about the rider numbers. Yeah.
Can I say about that I ride the bus regularly, and because of COVID and since COVID, it's like lucky if you get 10 to 12 people on that bus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is during, you know, not commuter times, but, you know, I ride the 9:30 down and the 4:10 back.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just, you know, the ridership is just like plummeted. And part of the challenge I mean, it's sort of an irony, is that they're on Saturday schedule. And so they aren't operating for people who work.
Yeah.
So people who work, you know, aren't going to ride it. So it's like this horrible catch-22.
Well, you know, they do change, they will change the schedule times, and they haven't done it because we were trying to advocate for them to, because they have the 6:10 and the 6:43 and have that on the weekend, so our employees could get up by 7:35-ish. And they were like, well, we can't do that on the weekends because we have people in Nederland that are going down that need to get to work. And so it doesn't work for the people that are going from Nederland down, you know, down the canyon. So I know they're open to, you know, feedback, and they will change the schedule if they get enough feedback saying that these, you know, that there are times that need to change. So I know they're open to it, but, you know, it's.
Well, thank you for all that informing me on my sort of negative opinion as though people weren't doing the kind of work that you're talking about. I apologize, but thank you for helping me be better informed.
Oh, I mean, it is the hot topic. It's, I mean, this year it was a late start because we didn't have snow, but I mean, Eldora's been there, the ski resort's been there since 1962, and this is not a new thing. We've been parking out for 10 years. It's not going away. And so we're definitely just trying to figure out, like, okay, well, and the other thing is we're in the season and our pass holders bought passes without paid parking, without a reservation system. So we can't make changes mid-season because our guests will, we can't, because that's not the contract we made when they bought their passes. So any changes, the changes that we're discussing are going to be for next season. But like I said, everything's on the table, and we want to do, we want to make changes that'll be a long-term solution and not just a short-term get us through the season. And it's just taking time to try to figure it out. But yeah, so what you were saying, Bonnie, is nothing that we haven't heard from many people, many people. So anyway.
I have a couple thoughts on it. One is I think, how's the signage project going, Miranda? Like, where's that stand? I think better signage, I don't know. It seems to me like some of the churches are open at certain times that people could park there, but it doesn't seem clear that they could do that. And there was a project underway last year to kind of improve signage for both walking and for parking. So that's one thought. And maybe you could fill us in on that. Yeah, so the DDA is still full steam ahead on that. So we will have a wayfinding project that is exactly that, both parking and foot traffic. And then we're also applying for a tourism management grant, which will help to hopefully add an additional $50,000 to that budget. So that is coming, absolutely. Okay, and then I would say, if I'm going to backcast on this, that it would make sense to me if there was more than one way to get through town. Maybe like, you know how they do sometimes where you can have 2 lanes going one way when it's really crowded, and then the other times there's 2 lanes going the other way. And I know this is like a big ask, but if you're talking like way out backcasting, if at some point there was like a second way through town so it doesn't just completely bottleneck. And if you had that and it was sort of like a loop, you could run a shuttle system through town so that people parking in different spots around town could catch the shuttle like you would in Steamboat or something like that. Because I'm included. I don't want to walk down Bridge Street when it's icy in ski boots carrying my skis and my helmet, and people don't want to walk that far in their ski gear or carrying their ski gear. So at least for skiing, I think if there was a shuttle system like some of these ski towns have, that didn't just stop at RTD, but also made a wider loop kind of through town so that people who live in town aren't driving. Because I don't need to drive to RTD, and yet I don't really want to carry my ski boots, the quarter mile to RTD. So I know that sounds lazy, but it's the reality for a lot of people. They don't want to walk that far in their ski boots. And so, I think that you could get people maybe not driving and not taking up parking spots when they have a parking spot in their driveway. If they could get a shuttle that kind of moved around a little bit more. And if it wasn't stuck, like if everybody's stuck, I can't make it to the middle school for my son because Eldora traffic, if everybody's stuck in the whole thing, then a shuttle doesn't work. And that's why I say some kind of loop might be good. And then I think the signage project will be helpful too, to know, like, let's make the most of what we already have. And I mean, ultimately,
all of those parking lots, if we could get, rechargeable stations, in the church parking lots and the town, like behind the gas station, that parking or whatever, get as many as we can. That's my thoughts.
Well, and we had talked about the town having a shuttle because Eldora we have 2 shuttles right now that we're not using because we don't have CDL drivers that the town could use if you guys had it in certificate of insurance, right? And you provided the CDL driver. 2 of them are hybrids. Our electric isn't open road. It's like a little tram, right? It's like, so it can't be driven on the road. That one has to stay in the parking lot. But the other 2 hybrids are, they definitely can be open road. So
That's great. That's good to know.
that's an
Could
option for sure.
Could I just ask about that? So you have 2 vehicles, is that what you're saying? That
Yes.
well, what is the long term? I mean, because does Nederland need a shuttle, just like Laura said? I mean, that's to me is the next big thing that we could do, and it would make a difference. But it's got to be like, it's got to be there for people. It can't be like once a day or twice a day. Like it's got to be circling through town on some route that people know. Down in Nederland, they have a system like that. And the students down there, they get used to it. It's going one way or the other way, and they know kind of when it's coming, and they carry stuff on. So, but to me, as I was listening to Laura talk about shuttles, I was going, well, where the hell is the money going to come from for shuttles? I mean, that's just a bundle of money. So I guess my next question is, could Eldora contract these to the town? Is that even possible for like a year? Just like I don't know, like a demonstration project, maybe to set up some sort of granting thing in the future. But like, yeah, little Nederland, they got a shuttle going, with Eldora's help, and they got some CDL drivers, and they made it happen, and it is happening. I mean, I'm just dreaming, but it's like, I'll stop there. But I guess so. I'm asking a question then, Hunter. Do you think those 2 vehicles, hybrid would be fine? Nobody would complain. Hybrid. Could they be contracted? It'd have to be a contract, I think. There'd have to be like a contract, like a year, I guess.
So I don't know if it could be, I mean, I think anything's possible. I think that they would be hesitant to say a year because I think it would be more like 6 months, because if we could hire CDL drivers in the fall or for this upcoming season, for the 2022-2023 season, then we would definitely use that, because we use those shuttles to, get our employees from Ned High School up to the resort. And then we also would use them in the parking lot. Right now, we've contracted out with VIA because they have CDL drivers. And because those VIA buses can also go down to the Justice Center. So they're going from Eldora, to Eldora to the high school, and they're doing that loop. And then some of them are going down to the Justice Center and then back up, stopping at Ned High School, and then going up to Eldora. Do you see what I'm saying? We asked RTD if we could use our shuttles at their RTD stops, and they said no. So that's another thing to think about. If Nederland did a shuttle, then you would have to create your own stops. And also,
Is it the county that pays for the Hesse shuttle in the summer? That's the county, right?
Yeah.
yes,
It is,
yeah,
yeah.
I think so.
Because that seems relatively successful, way of moving people with Green Ride. And they have the CDL drivers and the vans, and then you'd have people who had a job most of the year if they were working Hesse shuttle in the summer and Eldora in the winter. But I don't know. The county's not going to care about that, I guess. Maybe they don't have any interest in helping with that. How come, is it because, why are they paying for the HESI shuttle? Like, how did that come about?
I believe it all came from it was causing a huge impact to town. And when they were pulling it from well, I guess, okay, let me take it back. Because they started doing the Hesse shuttle from the RTD park and ride. And it's because Eldora doesn't have enough spaces up by the trailhead. And Eldora, the town itself, is marked as all no parking on the street. And therefore, within the town itself. And therefore, they had to move the parking elsewhere. And then it wasn't feasible to do the shuttle from the RTD because of just kind of the backlog and the chaos it created in town. So then they got permission to move it to the high school and do the shuttle from there.
Mhm. And, but is it the county, like HESI is a county run thing, or like, how did the county get into it in the first
Well,
place?
because Hesse's in Boulder County unincorporated. So it's always been.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Just curious.
I don't think the county would help the town of Nederland on this, or if it did, it would be. I just don't see them putting up big money. I mean, maybe, but it's hard to. I don't see the ask necessarily unless we do something first. The town, for example. Can I go back to Hunter for another question? Hunter? Are you there? Are you there? Or,
I'm here.
so going back to these two shuttles, it's just on my mind for a second, but it's like, so
Yeah.
what about the off season for Eldora? Would you be using those shuttles like during the summer?
No, we
Well,
don't use
then-
them.
Well, then could a 6-month, I'm just dreaming here, but you got to start somewhere. Could a 6-month contract, it has to be a contract, it does, I think, to even be serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
okay, so what would be the next? I mean, going back to Miranda, I guess you're bringing up Central Business District stuff, and we're actually talking about Central Business District.
Yeah, so I think at this point we're just collecting feedback. What will happen is I'll bring this recommendation back before the Board of Trustees, and if they're in support and they give the directive to staff, we'll then connect with Eldora to discuss ways in which we could actually execute this and make it happen. So we are just in the kind of the dreaming phase right now. But I think the Youth Advisory Board is very interested in kind of a shuttle thing as well. So I do think, and so is Trustee Taylor. It will likely be one of the projects that hopefully gets moved forward, and we'll assess how we can execute it.
Yeah. Well, and like we do, we share vans with Teens Inc. Like they let us borrow their vans and then we let them borrow our vans. And I don't know if we have a contract with them, but it would probably be something similar. The other thing is, I would need to get final approval because we had talked about it like at Eldora, but it was like, we're not against this at all. And yes, we'd totally be up for it, but I'd have to get like all the details and per Larry's point, we've got to get like a contract figured out, but we do contracts all the time, so that wouldn't be a problem. But yeah, so if you just tell me what more details and like dates and times and
Yes, I think, Hunter, we still are a bit ways off from being able to move forward those types of conversations, but this is really good to know. But I'm not sure we would even be approaching you for probably another month or two.
Okay.
If that, but let the team know that it's highly likely we will be doing so.
Okay.
So in hearing all of you, I'm starting to like think about there's parking at Caribou, the music place. There's parking on the week, at least on the weekends at the high school. And if there were a shuttle that, went between, like Caribou, the community center, all the way up to the high school, just a thought about handling parking and tourism, and maybe during certain times of the day so that it's, I wouldn't like to see it run super often and be empty. That would not help. So, thinking about when, you know, when it could run to really serve the most people.
Well, if I could just speak to that, we actually rented the Caribou parking lot this season. Eldora has, and we haven't used it at all. And the problem was the snow clearing, snow plowing. We couldn't get it plowed, and we didn't have staff to be there, and we didn't have a shuttle driver. And because the way our shuttle timing is, it would have been too infrequent. So people would be waiting for like over an hour to get a shuttle, which would just make people more frustrated. So my point is that they are completely open to renting their parking lot out, but they're not able to plow, and it would have to be staffed. So just
Gotcha. And I was
Yeah.
more thinking about building on the 6-month off season.
in the summer, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think knowing the history of the Caribou Room in town, I'm not sure how open they would be to renting it out, but maybe it's worth approaching. I think I would envision something from that School Road, Ridge Road area to up to West Mag, because I think a lot of people come in and go up into West Mag in the summer as well. And a lot of locals utilize that area and could then hop on a shuttle and head up to West Mag instead of having to drive their own car. So yeah, I like the idea of a shuttle. I think that sounds to be kind of our recommendation as a board. Does anybody have any thoughts on the current parking requirements, and if they would like to see any changes on the current parking requirements for businesses, or what that kind of looks like? I know my personal opinion is to leave it as is, or make it easier for businesses, but that's just my personal opinion. So anyone else?
I would second that. I really think we need to kind of support businesses, and make it viable for them, not think of things that make life harder for them, just the opposite, make life easier for them. And right now it's just a big jam up, and I don't see anything except something like a shuttle that could even possibly make a short-term difference. But if there's signage that's moving in the right direction, that would be awesome. And other than that, just try and be pro-business as much as we can. I am stuck on this shuttle thing though, and I kind of wondering, because summer's coming up. It's almost here, summer. And so staying in dream mode for just a second, and I know these things take forever. If you're trying to talk contracts and then funding, and then how's the CDL part going to work? Is Netherlands going to provide that? I mean, it just seems impossible to do this year. So maybe it can't. But if we really wanted to have a central business district sustainability advisory recommendation that could actually make a difference, I think it would be the shuttle. So I don't know. It's like we can't do that ourselves, of course, but if we could be like a push to make it happen, and if we have this incredible idea or offer from Eldora, I mean, if you just think about it for a second, they have 2 shuttles that we could have, maybe. I mean, who knows, but maybe for 6 months in the off season, and they would, more or less free. Not totally free, of course. There's the drivers and the insurance and the etc. But if you think about that as kind of like, superstructure costs, it's like, I don't know. I think people would love it if all of a sudden they were like, oh, there's a free shuttle, really, and it's reliable. And I think it'd be great for Eldora. Frankly, it would be another reason to love the ski area. So I'll stop there. But it's like, just listening to this, it's like, is it doable this summer even? I guess it's not, but it's like, if it were, let's say if there were a few BOT people who were like, I'd like to see this, then I would be willing to jump on a little subcommittee if it could, right away even, to see if it could be pushed through. So I'll stop there, but it's like, other than, a bridge across the creek, like Laura suggested, that's another big deal, but that's way beyond our purview, way beyond, that's a highway. So it's like, that's not feasible right now. I'll end on one note though, on this backcasting idea, which I love so much. I follow the automobile industry a lot, and we are converting to electric vehicles. That's absolutely happening, 100% certain. But another thing that's going to be happening is autonomous driving. It's coming right along. It's not quite there with the electrical power side, but it's coming. And we are going to, I'd say within 25 years, we're not going to be owning cars the way we do now. Some of us will, but 50-75% of us will not own a car. We will call one up autonomously when we need it, and it will be affordable. And they'll be everywhere. I don't know if we'll have less cars at that point on the road. There will be somewhat less, but it's never going to be like we're dreaming about. But believe me, things are going to be changing seriously. And just thinking about Nederland and how people would come in 20 years from now, at least half of them are going to be using autonomous vehicles to come into town. So I'll stop there. But can we, this shuttle thing, I don't know. Is there a next step, Miranda? Would there be like,
again, we're going to need board of trustee. So we wouldn't want to move forward without board of trustee approval to do so. So that's the next step. We'll bring all the findings back to the board of trustees on March 15th, and let's see what they approve from there. But I wouldn't want anyone to spend too much time on this without they're not a for to move forward to pursue this further.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any
Sarah, I just have
other
to ask-
final thoughts on parking in the central business district?
Yeah, I just have to ask, has there been a talk about an urban gondola, maybe connecting Eldora and Nederland or perhaps Boulder?
I thought about it in my head.
I know, it would be amazing. I mean, I think it would be incredible. The problem is a gondola is $20 million. Like, I think everybody would be like, yeah, let's do it. But who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. Interesting thing to think about. I just put a link in the chat, but one of the Cottonwood Canyons out of Park City or out of Salt Lake, they're really pushing for it right now as part of a solution to their traffic problem. And they're curbing it on its sustainability as well, reducing pollution in the urban corridor, reducing risk from avalanches. Instead of widening the road to 4 lanes, they could keep it at 2 and put a gondola in. And then they're also thinking about how to connect the ski resorts in the other Cottonwood Canyon so that it would actually give equal access to all 4 of those resorts. So I can't think of the names right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's Alta, Snowbird, Brighton, and what's the other one? Deer Valley?
Deer Valley. So are the ski resorts paying for that, or is it subsidized by the Park City, or?
It's just a conversation, right? It's been in conversation for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think there's plans to actually move forward, but I think we're going to see more of this. And this is the European model, right? There's gondolas everywhere in Europe, and people only have access to their homes sometimes by public transportation on a gondola. Something to think about.
Well, and I know Snowbird has a tram. It's really cool, actually. I think that'd be amazing.
Maybe you could do it out of Gilpin. Get the casinos to pay for it.
There you go.
And you could get your surf and turf on the gondola while you're like slot machines
Your
on the way to
snow
the
crab legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, put your slot machines on the gondola.
Okay. Well, did I lose anyone? No, you're there. I would ask that you take the survey because in addition to this informal conversation, we do want your individual feedback, and so that was emailed to you. And this will not be the last time this comes before you. So keep me, if there's other things that come to mind when you're thinking about this later, feel free to email me or put it in that survey. But thank you for this information. It was really great.
Thanks, Miranda.
And everyone for a great discussion. Okay, so next thing on the agenda is time for Erica if she has anything to update us on.
Yes, thanks, Melody. So full disclosure, I've been really just getting my feet wet in this new position, and it's been very fun. Lots of projects going on. And I wanted to just start with kind of the most recent. So today was the launch of the Colorado Green Business Network. And they have a new green business tracker. And this event went from like 9 to 12 this morning. And there was an in-person component. It was at the Museum of Nature and Science. And then I attended virtually. They actually had very limited in-person spots. But there were some great speakers and I learned a lot. And some of this actually, there was a guy from the Colorado Energy Office talking about EVs and some grants available for EV chargers, as well as there's actually a network of experts that are free to consult with as far as EV charging stations, which I didn't necessarily know that myself. And they launched this new green business tracker, which we have decided as a group to use the new state platform for our upcoming launch of our green business network in Nederland. And the plan is to start and launch this around April 1st. And before then, we want to try to get some businesses, if possible, to do like our own beta testing and get some feedback from them and then really see what the process is like to go through this application. It's about 54 questions, so it's a bit less than what they have had on the PACE survey. And then we would open it till about September 1st and close it at that date. There will be then about a month for Matt Hammond from PACE and Zach to really help kind of crunch numbers and to see how everyone scored as far as their application and where they are as a business. And then we would have a celebration, hopefully in October, early October. And if it's okay with Melody and the farmers market crew, possibly pair it with a farmers market event. A lot of this is still just, not set in stone. It's very malleable, but pretty exciting. One cool thing to mention about the Green Business Network and launching this in Nederland is that there's also a climate action challenge that PACE is championing. And it's really neat because they'll actually help you build your greenhouse gas inventory as a business. And then they'll actually help you update it annually, which can be a lot of work and can be daunting, especially for a small business with limited resources and time. And so that will get you more points as far as this Green Business Network and program. And so we're going to want to talk to businesses about that at the same time as an option that they could add on to and join this climate action challenge as well. So that's the Green Business Network. There also was someone from the state talking about RREO grants, which is a recycling grant, and then this Forward grant, which is the Front Range Waste Diversion grant, which is interesting to learn more about that. That's the grant that we have our eyes on. The town staff has their eyes on for this composting huge facility at the wastewater treatment plant. And that will probably be something we're looking at in the next few months. It is open, I believe, 3 times a year, and it's just for Front Range communities. I attended a handful of meetings the last month, and I kind of was trying to go through the Rolodex of all these meetings. So I just wrote a quick list to try to connect you guys with some of these conversations. So there was an EV focused Boulder County Partners in Energy meeting, and it's a brainstorming session. It's the third one they've had, I believe. And I definitely felt over my head in that. I think I'm going to call this EV expert from the state. But they're really talking about strategy as far as where do we put EV charger stations in the county, and how do we help communities? How do we do this equitably? How do we, make sure we have everyone included in these new charging locations? So there's a lot just in that conversation around EV growth. The gentleman at the launch party today for the Green Business Network was saying there's about 50,000 electric vehicles in Colorado as of December of last year, and they really want to ramp that up. I tried to write down the number. The audio was a little bit tough, but they want to significantly build that, and they're on a trajectory for that. Miranda and I talked about there's a push to make the peak-to-peak corridor EV friendly, so that folks can advertise and have folks come to us with electric vehicles. And so I just did a quick search. There are EV chargers in Lyons, but there's also EV chargers in Central City, Blackhawk, and Idaho Springs. So we do have some good EV charger locations, and I'm going to do some more research about that. The ones in Blackhawk and Central City are Tesla specific, which it sounds like you need an adapter if you're another brand. I think, Larry, you might know more about that too. So that's a cool thing coming up. CC4CA, Colorado Communities for Climate Action. I put a link to their website in the chat. If you're not familiar with them, check them out. They are amazing. We've been members for the last few years. They now say they represent 1 out of 4 Coloradans, which is unbelievable. When we joined, I think it was just about 1 out of 8. And so there are communities joining all the time, and it's really building our ability to make changes and to speak as a larger group. They have a legislation meeting tomorrow, so I can check in with you guys about anything relevant there. There was a policy meeting earlier this month that I attended, and they are working towards more educational events, which is what they had with EcoCycle about a month ago around the plastic ban that's coming into place in 2024, specifically around styrofoam. I am working with Solarize and Ellen Ross, and it's kind of separate of this position here, but I've been interviewing a lot of Solarize communities throughout the country with Ellen. And there's quite a few communities that are doing annualization Solarize campaigns. So back to what Melody mentioned earlier, and it could be one of our goals, Summit County has done, I think this is their 3rd year. I interviewed Philly Solarize out of Philadelphia. They just have a rolling program all the time. And you really want to sign up by a certain date because that sets the price, right? You're like committed to a specific price if you sign up by February 1st or whatever that is. And then each year that price changes. So that's an interesting thing to think about. I'm also working with a school group at Western with it's called ICLEI. They are really good at helping municipalities build greenhouse gas inventories and action plans. And I actually connected with Garrett a few weeks ago, and he's using ICLEI in Broomfield. Actually, I think it was kind of in the works before he joined their team, but they have just a really good platform. And right now I'm using an offshoot of ICLEI called Temperate. It's a software program that was built for them by somebody else. And this program is about $1,500 to have access to a year for municipalities. And right now I have free access to it with Western. And so right now we're building a climate adaptation plan for Nederland. It's really just going to be focused on reduced snowpack and a few vulnerabilities because it's a lot of work and we don't have a lot of time. But just wanted to let you guys know that this will be coming back to you guys at some point. So we'd like to bring back like what our findings are as far as how is reduced snowpack going to affect a number of components throughout Nederland, and what did we miss, what more is there to the conversation, and how do we bring this to our community and use it as a resource. There's a number of other hazards we looked at, like wildfires, extreme heat events, reduced let's see, changes in seasonal patterns. So we can talk about those as well at some point once we have a product to show SAB. I did check in with Garrett. He's doing well. And it was great to talk to him. I'm really excited to continue, seeing him and checking in with him. He says hello to everyone. He misses Nederland very much. And he's going to have a baby soon. So I'm sure he's going to have his hands full very quickly. And one thing that Garrett brought up, which I thought was interesting, we were talking about this 100% goal of Nederlands. And in Broomfield, they're really focused on efficiency and electrification. And the reason for that, under my understanding, is because of Excel. Excel is planning to be 80% by 2030. And we found in Nederland, they're our biggest hurdle. They have the final say for any community solar garden we propose. It has to be competitive with communities that might be proposing solar gardens down in the flats. Renewable Connect, they haven't offered another tranche. Even their wind program, right? It's a ridiculously cheaper energy source for a premium cost. And so their plan is to really look at this electrification and efficiency. And I wonder how we can incorporate that into our goals moving forward in NED. I do think there's some serious value in that because it could potentially reduce our greenhouse gas emissions more than possibly hitting 100% for our electric grid. And that's because we're going to be targeting gas in that conversation as well, which is a huge thing in Nederland, right? So we can talk about that more. Another thing about code is that there's some communities, one community in particular, I believe it's Louisville, that has looked at really changing the code to make homes more electric friendly. And so instead of outlawing gas in their code, they just require that all new builds are EV or electric and gas ready. And so if you want to have gas, that's an additional charge to also put in gas capabilities in your home. But then it also means that there could be a quick transition. So just something to think about. And I just wanted to bring up those. I'm sure there's more to talk about, but we've also got some goals to talk about as well. So any questions?
I just wanted to add about the EV chargers. So I mentioned that Eldora's, we're doing a parking lot expansion. We're breaking ground May 15th. We're installing 16 dual port charge point chargers. And we got a grant for $90,000 through the Regional Air Quality Council and Charge Ahead Colorado. And one of the things, that's when I learned about how they were trying to increase the EV charger population in the mountain, the peak to peak corridor. And that was one of the things that they were like, oh, that'll be great because you're kind of filling in a need where in that area. So we'll be, so just so you guys know, there'll be additional chargers at Eldora.
And Hunter, when will those be online? Will they be online next season?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's the goal, to have it all ready to go next season by opening of 2023 season.
So this is a very big deal. EV chargers. I mean, this is as big as it gets, kind of. I mean, even near term, really. And so I'm really excited by what Erica just told us. I mean, if I understand it all properly. But the first thing I'm thinking of is, well, does the town of Nederland have a role to play in bringing these EV chargers, to Nederland for starts? So I guess, I'm just wondering, Miranda, is there, I mean, wow, another huge project, kind of, but so a question would be, has this been discussed in BOT, EV chargers?
We've discussed it under the realm of the Transportation Improvement Project. So that's a sidewalk redevelopment happening around Kathmandu, heading into the visitor center and then RTD lot. We will be adding new fast chargers under that. There is a discussion about requiring EV chargers in new builds. When we adopted the 2018 building code, the one thing we did do is require a certain energy rating score for all new builds. And of course, one way to achieve that score is to do EV chargers. But the board in an amendment would be looking at requiring to have the hookups. Whether you actually installed it, that's different, but you at least have the hookups to be able to do EV chargers. So yes, the conversation's happening, but it's happening in kind of a piecemealed manner and not this like overly comprehensive, like how are we gonna enhance EV chargers across the community as a whole?
Well, I know there's other things to talk about, and so, gosh, every single, let's just think about the basic parking lots in, say, the central business district. And this is where backcasting could help, because just think about 20, 25 years from now, all those parking spaces are, not all of them, but let's just say a large number of them are going to have EV charging stations. It's not going to be possible for everybody to get their charge down below, let's say in Denver, and come up and cruise for the day in the mountains. Some people will be able to do that, but some large percentage they're going to need to know that there's going to be a charging station for them up in the mountains. And so I'll stop there, but it's like, I just kind of see a role for Nederland somehow to play. And maybe at the level of either seeking grants, if those are possible, which maybe they could be, or at least being business friendly, bringing it. There's all of these new EP providers. Tesla has that's their own brand, and they're not sharing their network right now. But there are all of these other companies that are building these stations, and a lot of them are going to be broad-based so that anybody could plug anything in. And this is coming. This is the future. This is a huge deal. And as from a sustainability perspective, we've got to keep our eye on this kind of thing if we want to, be in the mix. So I'll stop there. But Erica, that was a fabulous presentation. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Erica? All right. I agree with Larry. That was awesome, Erica, and we're so happy to have you in this new role. And so for board updates, I have Hunter on here with the Zero Waste Committee, and I just wanted to mention again that single-use plastics ban is something that is going to be upcoming, and so something we should continue talking about. What does that look like in Netherlands starting in 2024 when that goes into effect? One major point is that the grocery store will be affected by that, but not necessarily our restaurants. Our restaurants are such small businesses. So unless we make an ordinance as a town to say that we also want those smaller businesses to adhere to the legislation, they would not be affected and they would still be able to use single-use plastic products. So just something to think about. I don't really want to get into a discussion on it tonight, but just be kind of thinking in your head, what's the best route to go for Nederland? Is it something we want to look at creating an ordinance about? Or is it something that we'd rather just kind of let go and work and focus more on the Green Business Program and helping and incentivizing businesses that way rather than kind of legislating on them? So just be thinking about that. Hunter, do you have anything to report on for the Zero Waste Committee?
Yeah, I just have a couple things. And Miranda and Erica were there too. And so was Larry. So if I'm missing anything, you guys feel free to interrupt and chime in. So the zero waste subcommittee met on February 2nd. We got an update on the green business program. At that time, the decision was pending on whether to go with the Boulder County evaluation criteria or the CDPHE criteria. And Erica just let us know that we're going with the Boulder County evaluation criteria, which is exciting. So the committee's eager to support the green business program in any way that we can. So there was discussion about, so Greg had received feedback from Backcountry Pizza that they're willing to build another shed to accommodate one of the two pieces of equipment from Ned Compost that are currently not in use. So we were just talking about how we could maybe figure out a pilot program and how it was going to be moved from their facility to how we would cover fees. Labor for turning it and doing the maintenance on it. So I don't think that we had made any decisions. It was all very, it was exciting and we really want to do something with it and figure out a way that we can have compost to support the local restaurants. And that I think it was mentioned that those two bins had not been used for about 4 years. So, they're there. We just need to figure out the logistics of how to get a pilot program up and functional. And, because it was mentioned that it may not be cost effective for the town. There's really not much of a financial return, but it's, high value to the community. So we would just need to sell it to the board once we get it more of a plan together on how we're going to do that. And then Erica had mentioned the Front Range Waste Diversion Grant. I think that's due in May. And so they're gonna focus on the grant rather than the wastewater composting. And then we were talking about outreach and education, the digital content promotion, and the a EcoCycle brochure, which provides a list of local places to take things to recycle, links for different topics. This is the digital part. Links for different topics like land, water, air, electricity, recycling resources, and providing simple messaging. And then also we talked more in depth about the welcome packages. We're going to start with doing 150 of those. It's going to be a neighborhood recycle goodie bag. And we're basically going to have reusable bags, and we'll solicit donations from eco-conscious companies. And let's see. The goal is to have the bags completed and ready for distribution by the first farmers market. And then we're going to tie it in with our Sustainability Sunday messaging, social content, so it matches what's happening at the zero waste table at the farmers market. And we're going to the goal is to reach out to 150 zero waste companies to donate 150 products of their products or samples of their products. And then also Knotted Root, the 5-gallon bucket giveaways. And we're talking about distributing those at the farmers market table as well. And so Annette's going to reach out and confirm the supply. And then we also talked about the SAB board opportunities. And we got Larry. Well, I don't know if it was, I think Larry, you're probably already planning on joining the board. I'd like the Zero Waste Committee to take credit for that, but that's probably not true.
No, you can take credit.
Okay. And then we talked about Frozen Dead Guys Days for a little bit and how the event chairs came to the last SAB meeting and were asking for guidance about zero waste and the coordinator. And is that, did they get that all sorted out? I guess they did because it's coming up pretty soon.
Not
Maria?
yet, but we're working.
Oh, they haven't.
No.
So did they apply for the grant with the NDDA?
They did, and they
They
were
did.
awarded funding.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. So, okay. And then that was it. That's all I've got.
That's
Is
awesome.
there anything I missed that you want to add?
No,
Erica?
I was just gonna say, I think we've decided to go with the state business tracker,
Oh, I'm
not the
sorry.
county, but that's
Okay.
great with the county. So they'll help us via the state business tracker. And
Okay.
Miranda, if that's not accurate, let me know.
No,
But
yeah, yep, that's correct.
okay. And Matt Hammond can access all that information. And then I did want to just add something. I'm talking to Bridger Tomlin from Westminster this week, this upcoming week, maybe it's even tomorrow, about some of the things they have going on. I've been in quite a few conversations with communities talking about the impacts that they've seen because of the fire, the Marshall Fire. And there's been some really interesting conversations with Excel, and they've been really supportive, it sounds like, with some of the planning and the rebuilding and really helping these communities become more resilient moving forward. And so specifically with Bridger, we're going to talk about that. And then also he kind of just sparked my interest because they have EcoCycle almost like on a retainer. So that EcoCycle comes in and does different talks for their community. And so EcoCycle is doing a talk with breweries on their waste. And so I've asked if I could join that conversation because I just don't know if we've really talked about that with our breweries in town. And maybe it's something they're interested in, maybe not. But I thought it was a cool opportunity to connect with Westminster and hopefully share some resources. So stay tuned on that one. And Frozen Dead Guy Days, Miranda connected them with Sarah Starr, and she's leading the charge, Hunter, and hopefully we'll have a plan soon. But definitely a great
That's great.
contact, and she's has so much zero waste experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Do any other board members have anything to report on?
I could just say that the BBSD Sustainability Advisory Board is having a slow start. They decided to kind of wait on their start date because of the fires. They were focused on that. And so the first meeting is next week on the 1st of March. And so I'm looking forward to touching base with them. The original sustainability action plan meeting that I went to, they really talked about trying to kind of help fill in the gaps for communities. And so, you know, it'll be interesting to hear where they're going. And I also want to touch base with them because Liz Cooley had gotten it working for both of our schools, the middle high school and the elementary school, to be composting. And then there was a shutdown of it because I don't think they could handle the volume, is my understanding. So anyway, Geeta, who's going to run this meeting, will, I'll be able to get some information from her about where that stands at this point and what else we need to do. But I'll be able to report to you guys next time about, you know, what's happening with them and how we can interface with them and work together from Netherlands. So I'm the only person on the board from Netherlands. I don't know if there's any other mountain community people on the BBSD SAB. A lot of letters there. So anyway, that's I'm looking forward to that, and I'll report on it next time.
Great, thank you. And so the last thing on our agenda to discuss is our goals. I think we need to have kind of two discussions, maybe a discussion tonight and next meeting about our 2022 goals specifically, like what do we want to have done by December this year? What do we want to be planning for? And then kind of a larger, more broad discussion that can continue on through a couple more months of what do we want our goal to 2025 with that renewable energy goal that we have. What is our longer term plan for the SAB, right? So I want to talk about what our longer term plan is, but then also what our short term plans are. So I started a spreadsheet and I just kind of broke different areas of focus on sustainability that the SAB has kind of talked about in the past into 5 major segments. And then from those, kind of pulling out individual actions that we can maybe take. And so I don't know how long everybody wants to discuss for. It's about 8:45 right now. So I guess I'll put it to the board how long we want to discuss for tonight and how much of this we kind of want to do offline by filling in things on a joint spreadsheet here.
Melody, I'm really sorry, but I can't stay tonight. And I really want to give this the attention it deserves. But if you would email us or me at least, the information, I think offline would work great. And then another discussion in the next meeting. But don't let me stop you if you want to discuss tonight. I just can't stay.
I actually have a hard stop at 9:15. But that's half hour from now, so.
I'm good for a while longer, but I'm wondering, if we're going to lose Laura, that's not good. And if Melody has something we could look at and ponder, I mean, maybe if we wanted to do a quick, just sort of roundabout discussion now, but it makes me feel bad when when board members have to leave at the appointed time for it to end. So I'll just I could stay. But it would be great to have something to look at, printed to ponder.
I know you're asking the board members, but I want to just make a little space here because I really need to leave. But I want to let you all know that I am just so touched and impressed by the work you're doing, the knowledge you have, the camaraderie of discussion, and I'm just really happy I got to attend the meeting today. And I don't think that this is something I can continue with. To some extent, it's way over my head, huge learning curve. But I just am so grateful for the work you're all doing. And I also want you to know that I'm connected with a group called Elders Climate Action, and they have a website for climate emergency resources. And one of them includes about 60 different actions that other cities have taken. And the Sierra Club has actions by codes, ordinances, that kind of thing. And I would be happy to share some of that information with you. And I also looked at a number of climate emergency towns that are about the same size as Ned. Found like 10 other ones. If anybody wants to do any kind of connecting with those. And if I can be a resource or networking, I'm happy to, function in that capacity. But I don't think I can join the board. So thank you all. I'm just thrilled and very grateful that you all are working on in these areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you for being here tonight and chiming in.
Thanks, Bonnie. I have to go. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you, Laura. All right, so I did send that spreadsheet out. I don't know what the lag time is on the listserv these days, but it should go through shortly. So take a look at that spreadsheet and just kind of get your mind rolling on brainstorming ideas. What kind of things we want to focus on. We can do legislative things and ordinances and resolutions, and we can work on projects, and we can work on partnerships. And so, you know, we're not really limiting this necessarily to action items and necessarily our goals, but also kind of this broader discussion of through 2025 and following along with, you know, town planning documents and Envision 2020 and Envision 2030. What kind of things sustainability wise do we need done in the town of Nederland? So yeah, I'll leave it there, and we'll come back next meeting and we'll have some of that compiled. And then eventually, hopefully we can kind of rank priority on things and determine especially what we want to get done by 2022, and maybe have some 2023 goals. So does anybody have anything else to end the meeting on?
Melody, I just have a quick question. So the categories on this document are energy, built, education, local, social.
Yeah.
And a lot of these overlap.
Huh?
A lot of these overlap. So like, for example, if we have a Solarize campaign, there's going to be, you know, a huge education component, and it's going to be all focused on local. So what would be, what's your vision as far as like distilling these down and really communicating them in an updated plan?
I think as we have an idea of what our priority focus areas are, then we'll be able to kind of dive down into some of the more actionable details. And I guess I would see the Solarize, of course, we have that education component. And so we would be kind of wanting to balance out in our head, what is the priority of running the actual Solarize campaign versus what is the priority of being able to list out all of the solar options for new residents in a pamphlet or on the website, you know, and kind of weighing out where we want our energy and where we want our focus. Does that make sense?
That sounds great. Thanks for doing this. There's lots of good ideas already.
Yeah, and feel free to add more to those main categories too. That was just my brain going off. So feel free to edit it and change it and update it. And I sent you guys an Excel version and the Google Docs version. So if you want to download that Excel on your computer and print it out, look at it, feel free.
Great, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Anything to add? All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Larry, for being here and volunteering to be our secretary. It was great to have you in the discussion. And we can adjourn the meeting at 8:52 p.m.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.
See you in
Cheers.
person. See y'all in person next month.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'll bring the cookies.
Oh.